Free, Sue, and we're live with Be Green with Amy.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Be Green with Amy. I'm Amy. After adopting a whole food plant-based lifestyle, my hubby Rick and I lost over 130 pounds. Now I coach others on their plant-based journey. Jess Task Voice, let's welcome our guest.
Vegan, sugar-free, all natural. Do you have food label confusion? Cyd Notter will share label reading tips to help us sort through the confusion. Author of the award-winning book, The Plan A Diet, combining whole food plant-based nutrition with the timeless wisdom of scripture. Cyd Notter hosts a monthly inflammation support group for the plant-based nutrition support group, pbnsg.org. Please click like to help Be Green with Amy. Welcome, Cyd Notter.
Greetings and welcome back, Cyd.
So happy to be here, Amy.
I am so happy to have you back. You've been on the show so many times, and every time you bring a fresh new perspective on so many things, and a lot of the things that we don't even think about that we need to know about. And today, especially, you're going to be talking about nutrition labels, and that is so important. You know, I remember when I first adopted this lifestyle, I was so confused, and I would read labels, and it just made it even more difficult. And I would go through the store with my hubby Rick, and he would take things off the shelf and he'd show it to me. What about this? What about this? And it was just such a struggle. And even now, after being since 2012, being this long on this journey, I can still kind of get a little confused when I look at nutrition labels. Now, of course, you know, when we're plant-based, we're going to try to avoid as many things as we can that have labels, right? That's in the best world, but it's not always practical. So sometimes we really need to know more about that. So I wanted to welcome our Green Warriors today for watching. Why don't you tell us in the chat where you're watching from? I would love to see where you're watching from. And today, of course, Cyd's going to be talking about the food labels, but she is also going to be doing a wonderful recipe demo for us. Do you want to kind of give us a little hint at what you're going to be doing so that we can know what we're looking forward to?
Absolutely. It's called Dinosaur Kale Slaw with orange Dijon dressing, and it's going to come together really quickly. So even if I start at 10 to 3 or 10 to 4, depending on your time, there's still going to be time to do this recipe. Everything's pre-chopped and ready to go.
Oh, you see that? And that's the best way to prepare food. If you have it all pre-chopped and ready to go, then you're not going to have much time, and it'll just get together quickly. And that's so fun. Oh, and Boomer and Beyond Wellness said, "Hi, Be Green with Amy. Hello from Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. Big hugs to you and to Cyd." Hey, big hugs to you. And that's a pretty life. Hello from Florida.
Oh, there's my Tanya. Nice. That's my friend Tanya. I spoke with her this morning and invited her to come. Thank you for coming.
Oh, isn't that nice? And Melanie is from Janesville, Maryland. Very nice. See? Oh, and here's Ruth from Michigan. Oh, and Ruth said, "I'm so glad to see you and Cyd. What a treat." Oh. Hello from Indiana.
There's my other friend, Ruth. Hello, Ruth.
Wow, look at that. We already have a few people from around different areas of the world, and they're all talking to each other in the chat while we're talking to you. So yeah, so I'm glad you guys are here. And as you're coming in, welcome, and please let us know where you're from and tell us about why you're here. And I would like to know, Green Warriors, how do you feel about these nutrition labels? Okay. I mean, do you get confused with them? Or is there anything in particular that kind of ruffles your feathers when you look at them? Or is there anything in particular that you've been confused by that you want us to talk about? Let us know in the chat. And so while we're going to do that in the chat, Cyd is going to have a presentation for us about nutrition labels. And also, we're going to be playing a true or false game throughout the presentation. And I think, Cyd, are you just going to cue us in for when you want us to start the game?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, excellent. Okay. Well, Green Warriors, get ready. Sid is going to tell us all about what we need to know about nutrition labels, and I'm here to learn.
All right, shall I dive in then? Let's
Yeah,
see.
let's try.
Well, before I start, I'll just give a couple little notes here that you'll hear me talking about the overall pattern for the day a lot during this little presentation, which matters greatly when you're reading labels so that you can keep an eye on where you are with certain nutrients for the day. And then this class, I'm currently developing a full-length version of this course, which this is not it. This is just a little snippet of information that I've developed so far. So you'll hear me refer to the full version of the class, which is still in process, and I'll be talking about that. So if you hear me talking about the full version of this class, that's what I'm referring to. Now, the three things I wanted to focus on for today's label reading tips are the big three: sugar, fat, and salt, right? Those are the three big addictors. So let's just talk about those right off the bat. So, should we start with a true false, Amy?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Okay, we're going to start with our game of true or false.
It's time for True or False on Be Green with Amy Live. Answer true or false to Amy's questions in the comments below, and Amy will ask our guest for the expert answer.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about processed foods, and Green Warriors, get ready. True or false? Not all processed foods are unhealthy. What do you think? Type in your guess. And Sid, tell us what the answer is.
Well, all processed foods are not. That is false. The answer is that all processed foods, not all of them are unhealthy. I think I worded that kind of confusing.
Okay.
So should be, are all processed foods unhealthy? And the answer is no, they're not. Not all processed foods are unhealthy. What a way to
There you
start,
go.
by
Yeah.
confusing people even more.
Well, that's okay. We got their attention.
All right. So if you follow a healthy eating plan, most of the foods in your cart are going to be fresh produce and maybe things from the bulk section. But there are many things that can come in cans and boxes, and such as canned beans, frozen veggies and fruits, salsas, marinara sauce, whole grain pastas, and certain cereals. Even some soups can be a part of a healthy diet, but the only way we'll know for sure is to read the label. So packaged processed products are some of the most deceptive foods out there, and you'd be surprised at how many foods that are labeled as healthy are actually filled with junk ingredients. So the term processed refers to anything that changes food from its original form. And the USDA lists it as anything that's crushed, cut, chopped, diced, sliced, pitted, blended, pureed, juiced, or dried. So that would include any food that's been cooked or canned or frozen or preserved. And we process foods all the time in our kitchens, right? With our food processors and our blenders and our stoves. So just because a food is processed doesn't mean it's bad for us. However, the more processed a food is, the more health risks it poses. So there are several levels to processing when it comes to packaged foods. Let's take a quick look. Minimally processed foods are processed at their peak freshness to lock in nutritional quality and freshness. Things like frozen fruits and veggies, pre-cut veggies, bagged lettuce and greens, and canned tomatoes even. So those would be green light foods for the most part. Then moving up the spectrum a bit from minimally processed is processed foods, which might be altered in some way, but the original food has been fortified with ingredients that have been sometimes added, minerals and vitamins, or they'll add oils and sweeteners and spices. Things like that would maybe be breakfast cereals, salad dressings, certain crackers, and so forth. Those would be a yellow light, depending on what the label has to say. And then we have the ultra processed foods, which have significantly changed the makeup of the original food. And these foods are the worst of the worst because they've been altered to include a lot of fats and oils and sugars and salt and dyes, and they're typically loaded with additives and preservatives to maintain a long shelf life. This would include things like frozen meals, pre-made microwave meals, canned convenience foods, packaged soups, granola bars, cookies, and sweets, candy, even like fake cheeses and fake meats, fried foods, sugary breakfast cereals, chips. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to look at a few products today to go over that more, but those would definitely be a red light. Yet surprisingly, 73% of the food on our grocery store shelves are the ultra processed foods. Let's call them UPFs for short. So, not surprisingly, the US is currently ranked the top consumer of UPFs, with the UK and Canada close behind us. But now, 58% of the calories consumed in the US are coming from these UPFs. So think about that for a second. That's a huge number. And Tufts University looked at 34,000 kids, and they have found that their intake of UPFs has jumped to 67%. So 67% of kids' calories are coming from these ultra processed junk foods. And this study was done in 2018, so 6 years ago. So the added sugars in UPFs too can be 8 times higher than in processed food. And that sugar is considered one of the major factors for our obesity rates as well. So label reading is crucial if we want to know what we're actually ingesting. But like Amy mentioned, it can be very confusing. Labels are misleading and they're difficult to interpret. So let's dive into a few basic guidelines to help us make wise choices when it comes to packaged foods. And the first one is to ignore any crafty claim on the box, anywhere on the box, because these words are often purposely deceptive. Manufacturers are notorious for featuring misleading health claims in order to lure you into purchasing their unhealthy products. And they know what types of diets are trending. I don't know if you've seen the word keto friendly, because they know keto is trending high. So if they'll put that right on the box that their product is keto friendly, they'll label things as gluten free when the food was naturally gluten free to begin with, just to try to get you to buy it. They'll say something is natural or organic, but that doesn't mean it's healthy, right? A cookie filled with sugar is still a cookie filled with sugar, whether it's organic or not. And sometimes you'll see the words a good source of something on the front of the package, like protein or vitamin C. That's a food marketing ploy to make you consider buying that product that you might not, you might have passed by it, but then they try to get you to buy it by making such claims. And then if a product says sugar free, you really need to beware because they're sweetening it with something, most likely an artificial sweetener, which can lead to inflammation and other issues. And you'll also see products that make health claims, such as this product can lower your cholesterol. I'm going to show you that next. Or you might see the words low fat, but by whose standards? Because some of the products making that claim are still very high in fat. Or you'll see the word vegan, which does not necessarily mean that product is healthy by any means. We've got to read the ingredient list to see what's in the product. So here's an example of that questionable health claim. So this is a box of chocolate Cheerios, and it claims there on the front that this cereal can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart healthy diet. But when we look at the small print there on the box, we read this, okay, 3 grams of soluble fiber daily from whole grain oat foods like chocolate Cheerio cereal in a diet low in saturated fat and cholesterol may reduce the risk of heart disease. Um, Chocolate Cheerios provides 0.75 grams per serving. Okay, so what do we make of that? So they're saying it takes 3 grams of an oat product, and this product has 0.75. So the Cheerios does not even have 1 gram of fiber. You'd have to eat 4 servings of this in order to get 3 grams of fiber, along with a ton of sugar and other junk.
Hey,
So
Cyd, or maybe we should just eat the box. Maybe we
exactly.
get more fiber that way.
Yeah. So this is an example. Plus, they're saying there the person's diet would already have to be low in saturated fat and cholesterol, and for the majority of Americans, that is not the case. So instead of eating this and getting less than 1 gram of fiber, have a cup of oatmeal which has 8 grams of fiber. Right? That's just an example of how they trick you. So let's do another true false, Amy.
Okay, let's do that. And we're going to go to our next true or false. Let's get ready. And we're going to be doing the percent daily values, right?
Yes.
Okay. True or false? The best way to evaluate a product is by first checking the percent daily values. What do you think, Green Warriors? Okay, Cyd, tell us what's the answer.
The answer is definitely false. The best way to evaluate a product is by reading the ingredient list first. And here's an example of a typical nutrition facts box and the ingredient list. Sometimes they're shown together like this, but sometimes they're separated on the back of the box. So you have to look for the ingredient list first. And then when you read the ingredient list first, you often don't have to go any farther than that to know if the product is acceptable. But if the ingredient list does look pretty good, then there's a few things that we'll take note of in the nutrition facts box as well. So let's start with what to look for in the ingredient list. So ingredients are listed in order by weight, right? So they're listed there in order, beginning with the highest amount of the first ingredient and then followed in descending order by the smaller amounts of certain ingredients, but they're always listed in order by weight. So that means that a food contains more of the ingredients at the beginning of the list and smaller amounts shown at the end of the list. So this product, which is a boxed bakery item, we see that wheat flour is the first ingredient. So that's the highest ingredient by weight is wheat flour. And then in parentheses there, we see what the wheat flour consists of. Now, this product is not a whole grain. It's a refined grain, but we're not talking about grains today. That's in the full-length version of the course. Today, we're going to be looking at sugar, fat, and salt. The second ingredient there is unsalted butter made of cream and flavoring, and then there's brown sugar, white sugar, all the way down to cinnamon. So we really need to look no further than the first two ingredients to know that this item is not compliant with a healthy diet. The first two ingredients are a refined grain and dairy, right? So we're not going to eat this plus a ton of sugar. So the ingredient list should always be the first place you look. And as I mentioned, you'll often have to go no further than that. So let's talk about sugars first. There is a big difference between natural sugars and added sugars. And one big difference is how fast our bodies digest them. So foods with natural sugars like fruit and dates and certain veggies, all of those contain fiber, which means our bodies digest those sugars more slowly and our blood sugar levels don't spike. And in the full version of the course, we go into much more detail about how sugars might look on a label and how they affect our health. But I like how Jeff Novick, he's the dietitian at the McDougall program, and Dr. Pam Popper, they both explain it that added sugar is added sugar. So even the syrups and cane sugars that we might even use at home, it's still an added sugar. And they say it's not as much about the type of sugar as it is about the overall amount of sugar that we're consuming. But I will add a caveat there. I think that high fructose corn syrup should always be avoided because of the many, many health problems that are associated with it. So if you're not following an SOS-free diet, which is sugar, oil, and salt-free, which I know many of you are, and some of you aren't to that point, but how much sugar would be okay to eat if you're not following an SOS-free diet? Well, the American Heart Association and Harvard Health, they say that women should consume no more than 25 grams of added sugars a day, which is 6 teaspoons, and men should consume no more than 36 grams a day, which is 9 teaspoons. Now, if 9 teaspoons sounds like a lot, that's less than 1 can of pop, just to put that in perspective. So remember, too, we're talking about added sugars throughout all of this, not the natural sugars found in fruit and all of those things. So they also say that children under 2 should have no added sugar, but we know from other studies that babies are being fed sugary junk food well before their first birthday. In reality, Americans and children now consume about 20 teaspoons of added sugars per day, which is 60 pounds of sugar a day. So just think of that. On the first of the month, someone brings a 5-pound bag of sugar and lays it on your counter, and you're going to eat that whole 5-pound bag of sugar every month.
And you and I aren't consuming any of it. So that means the average is more for that. They're having even more than that because we're not in that average.
Exactly. Yep. And teens are eating about 22. So remember how we talked about the ingredient list always listed in order by weight. Well, manufacturers play this game, the divide and conquer game, and they don't want sugar being listed as the first ingredient. So they'll use many different forms of processed sugar so they can spread the sugars out. And here's an example of a low fat breakfast cereal with 12 different kinds of sugar in it, which they've done that again to avoid sugar being listed as the main ingredient. And even though they did that, sugar is still number 2 on this list. So how can we tell how much sugar's in a product? Okay, so say, okay, I'm a woman, I'm going to have no more than 6 teaspoons of added sugar a day. Well, there are 4 grams of sugar in 1 teaspoon. So to identify how much sugar is in a product, all you have to do is find the grams of sugar listed in the nutrition box, the grams of added sugar, I should say, and divide that number by 4. So this is a case of Pepsi, and you can see on the label there by the blue arrow that a can of Pepsi has 41 grams of added sugar. So 41 divided by 4 is roughly 10. So 1 can of Pepsi has the equivalent of 10 teaspoons of sugar. And this is for a 12-ounce can. If someone drank a 20-ounce bottle, it would have over 17 teaspoons of sugar. And we can tell by the ingredient list highlighted there in yellow that high fructose corn syrup is the main ingredient, which we definitely want to avoid. So again, natural sugars from dates and fruits and other veggies would be acceptable. All right, here's an example of Smucker's Natural Cherry Jelly. So let's look at that. We see here by the left-hand arrow that the serving size is 1 tablespoon. So, okay, tip number 1 was don't believe the outside of the box. Tip number 2 is check the serving size, because if it's 1 tablespoon, but if you're going to put 2 tablespoons on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you're going to have to double the sugar and all the things, so make sure you're looking at the serving size. Usually people are eating much more than what the serving size says. Now, the right-hand arrow here shows us that there are 9 grams of added sugar per serving. So let's do our sugar calculation. 9 grams of added sugar divided by 4 is 2 1/4. So 2 1/4 teaspoons of sugar per serving. And this is interesting because if the serving size is a tablespoon and a tablespoon is the same as 3 teaspoons, that means that 2 1/4 teaspoons out of 3 teaspoons are coming from sugar. So this product is over 2/3 sugar. So, try to look at it that way. And we'll be looking at a few more products in just a minute, but let's move on to oils and added fats now. So we do need some dietary fat, and the full-length version of the class goes into a lot of detail about that. It talks about the essential fats of omega-3 and omega-6. Essential, meaning that we have to get those fats through our food. And it talks about how much do we need. Only about 3% of our calories needs to come from essential fatty acids, which occurs naturally in our plant foods. So experts say that it's challenging to provide a one-size-fits-all fat recommendation because the amount is going to vary by person, based upon their body weight and the amount of calories they're eating every day and the amount of physical activity that they're doing. But most of today's standard American diets are promoting somewhere around a 30% fat diet, even the American Heart Association, meaning 30% of a person's calorie intake can come from fat. So Americans are now typically eating around 40% fat, unless they're following a keto diet, which is 70 to 80% fat. So reducing to 30% would be a step in the right direction in that case. But we know that that's not the answer because according to many, many lifestyle medicine doctors, 30% of calories coming from fat has been shown scientifically to worsen disease. So for optimal health, fat consumption should be around 10 to 15% of calories. And population studies continually show that countries that consume less than 20% of fat have lower rates of cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. Now, Dr. Esselstyn's program is even more strict. So let's shoot for around 15% fat. After all, like oatmeal, chickpeas, and quinoa, all of those healthy foods are around 15% fat. Now, here's where I talk about the overall dietary pattern. So let's say that you are going to eat some higher fat sesame seed crackers with a dip, but your lunch is a very low fat black bean soup. So all of that's going to balance out your overall pattern for the day. So it's something to keep in mind. Let's have a true false, Amy.
Okay, get ready, Green Warriors. We're going to have our next true or false question. And here we go. True or false, hydrogenated oils, trans fats, are safe to consume if kept under 1 teaspoon per serving. What do you think, Green Warriors? Cyd?
That is false. Trans fats are not safe in any amount. And this slide here outlines a few reasons that we want to avoid all added oils, but I'm going to skip to the very bottom here and just talk about the trans fats for a second, which are listed as hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil. Even the FDA says these are not safe, which is, that says something right there. So hydrogenation is when manufacturers add hydrogen to a liquid fat like an oil, and that turns it into a solid fat at room temperature. And these trans fats were used a lot in baked goods and stick margarine and frosting and coffee creamers. But the goal should be to avoid any type of added oils, no matter what type, but especially if you see the word hydrogenated, you do not want to have that product. So how can we tell how fatty a product is when we're looking at a label? What percentage of the calories in a product is coming from fat? And if it's our goal to stay around 15%, this is how we can figure that out. So this may look daunting at first as I explain it, but stick with me. Your eyes might glaze over, but just stick with it. And it's very easy to understand. Once you understand it, it's very easy to do. So a gram of fat has 9 calories, and it does not matter the source of the fat, whether it's chicken fat or cheese fat or fish fat or avocado fat. All fat has 9 calories per gram. So if we take the total fat on a label and times it by 9 calories, then we get X. Here it's marked as X. That's the number of calories from fat. Then we divide that number, X, by the total calories to get the percentage of fat. And the answer will always begin with a decimal point. So you can either times that number by 100 or skip that and just mentally move the decimal point over 2 places. I know your eyes are glazing over right now, so let me show you an example. So here's a box of apple pie Lara bars. Okay, let's start with the ingredient list first, as we should always. We see dates, almonds, apples, walnuts, raisins, and cinnamon. Okay, all natural ingredients. So it passes the ingredient test, but it does have nuts in it. Let's check out the percentage of fat. So there we see the green arrow is showing us that there are 9 grams of total fat. So 9 times 9 is 81. And then we divide 81 by the number of calories, which is 200, and we get 0.405. Now, again, just move the decimal point to the right 2 places and you have 40 and a half. So this product is 40.5%. 40.5% of the calories in this product are coming from fat. Okay, here's a package of Daiya cheddar cheese slices, right? This is a popular thing among some vegans, dairy-free cheese. Let's look at the ingredient list first. We see Daiya's oat cream blend, which consists of some oat flour and pea protein, cultures, and enzymes. And then coconut oil is the second ingredient, which is a big red flag. We would normally go no further than this, but let's keep going just for practice. And we know that coconut oil, by the way, is really high in saturated fat. So if you see coconut, pretty much coconut, anything, sometimes maybe not, but coconut oil for sure, then you'll need to check the saturated fat level too, because saturated fat, coconut oil is 92% saturated fat. It's 100% fat, as all oils are, but 92% of that oil is saturated. That's twice the saturated fat as in lard. So we can expect to see high saturated fat in this cheese product as well. So again, we're just going to continue on for practice. We would not buy this because of that, but let's do our calculations. So there are 5 grams of total fat. 5 times 9 is 45. Then 45 divided by the total calories, which are 70, is 0.642. Now you can, again, times that by 100 or just mentally move the decimal point to the right 2 places. So 6.642 becomes 64.2. So this product is over 64% fat. And when we look at the gram of saturated fat, the grams there highlighted in blue, we see the same number of fat grams. So not only is this product 64% fat, but all 64 of it is saturated fat. So that is a contributor to many diseases, heart issues, diabetes, dementia, and so much more. So I'm going to show you this little time-saving hack. I've got to grab my phone real quick. So say you're in the store and you don't feel like doing all this calculating on your calculator. You only need to two numbers, and you can ask your phone, well, what the answer is. So you only need to know the total the total fat grams and the calories. So let's do this on that diet product. We know the fat grams were 5 and the calories were 70. So just ask your phone, what's 5 times 9 divided by 70? I'm going to do it right now. What's 5 times 9 divided by 70?
Oh, wait, I'm going to bring that up full screen so we can show that you have it. There's your
Yeah.
answer right there.
Yeah, and it even said it, but you probably didn't hear it because it's not by my microphone. So that's
Okay.
an easy way to do this. 6.642 it said, which is correct. So let me share this deceptive labeling loophole with you. This is a product that says 0 fat on the label when it really contains a whole lot of fat. So how can that be? Spray oils are a great example of this. So here's a picture of typical spray oils, and the highlighted ingredients there. We see canola oil, soy lecithin, which is another type of oil, an anti-foaming agent. And if you look a little closer, you'll also see it contains a propellant to dispense the spray. So let's go to the nutrition facts box. We see 0 calories, 0 fat, 0 saturated fat. Well, how can that be? We know all oils are 100% fat, and they're the highest calorically dense food on the planet. So how can spray oil have 0 calories and 0 fat? They get away with that because of this labeling loophole about the serving size. So if each serving size has less than a half a gram of fat, carbs, or protein, they can round all those numbers down to 0. And then as a result of that, the calories can be 0 too. So this spray oil, in order to get the fat below a half a gram, they adjusted the serving size to a quarter of a second spray. You see that circled in red. Now, who could actually do that? Who could actually spray that thing for a quarter of a second? Really, there's
Right. By the time
750.
by the time your finger pushes down, you would have to lift it up before it
Yeah,
even got all the way down.
yeah, and you see there's 753 servings per the can. So, yet many people are spraying this liberally onto their pans and on their baking sheets because they think it's 0 fat and 0 calories, when in fact it is not. So finding oil-free products, they are out there. You just have to look for them. I can help with that. I'm sure Amy knows too, where certain things are. But once you find those, then all of this gets a lot easier once you find the products in your area that are acceptable for you. All right, so let's move on to sodium for today. And many of you who are SOS free, of course, don't consume any added salt, while others allow for minimal amounts. And in the full-length version of the class, we talk about why our bodies do need salt and how addictive salt is. And we do need about 500 milligrams of sodium every day. We do need that, and that's just about how much plant foods provide, which is perfect, right? We're getting all the sodium we need from our whole plant foods. Now, the current recommendations, according to the FDA, is no more than 2,300 milligrams of salt a day, which is about a teaspoon. And the American Heart Association sets the ideal limit at no more than 1,500 milligrams a day. Now, these are far less than what Americans are typically eating, between 3,500 and 4,000 milligrams a day. So if you're not following an SOS-free diet, say you want to stay around 1,500 milligrams a day, and you're already getting 500 milligrams naturally through your plant foods, that would leave room for about 1,000 milligrams a day, which is less than a half a teaspoon. So that's all the added salt that you'd be able to have if you're staying within the guidelines. Now, if you're purchasing packaged foods, you would be keeping that 1,000 milligram number in mind as part of your overall pattern for the day. So, and by the way, it doesn't matter what type of salt it is, table salt, sea salt, pink salt, that does not change the recommendation. it's been noted that the coarser the salt, the bigger the crystals, the less actually fits on the spoon. So the sodium would be lower there. But when you're looking at packaged foods and say you're going to stay with the 1,500 milligram recommendation, which means you can have 1,000 from other sources, you want to keep that in mind as you're looking at your packaged foods, because that's where the majority of our sodium intake is coming from, packaged foods, over 70%.
You're right, Cyd. It's so true. There's so many people I encounter that say, "Oh, I don't use salt. I don't
Yeah.
need to worry about it." I'm so glad you're bringing this up.
Yes. Processed junk foods, restaurant meats, even chicken, they inflate chicken carcasses with salt water to inflate it. So even things you think are salt-free may not be. 14% of our sodium is coming, again, naturally through our plant foods. 6% is added while we're cooking, and about 5% is actually coming from the salt shaker. And then less than 1% comes from tap water, supplements, and antacids. So sodium can be in a lot of places. So let's just look at this label here. This is Amy's Chinese noodles and veggies in a cashew cream sauce. And normally we would, of course, go to the ingredient list first. But for this exercise, the purpose of this, we're just going to look at the sodium. And you see by the serving size, by the label there rather, that one serving of this is the whole tray would have 780 milligrams of sodium. Now that's a lot of sodium for one serving of anything, but soups and frozen entrees are typically always high in sodium. The nice thing with sodium, there's no math involved here, right? You don't have to times anything. You just have to look at the milligrams, but keep that serving size in mind, because if this serving size was a half a tray and you're going to eat the whole tray, now you're over 1,500 milligrams of sodium, so keep that serving size in mind. And also know that there are plenty of salt-free substitutes on the market, which are delicious. So now let's put into practice what we've learned, and let's look at a few products for sugar, fat, and salt all at one time. Okay, so this is a can of Amy's Chunky Vegetable Soup. And let's start with the ingredient list. As always, there's filtered water, and then we have organic ingredients of diced tomatoes, carrots, green beans, corn, peas, spinach, onions, celery, sea salt might be a factor, and pepper. So all recognizable as good, except if you're SOS free, of course, you would not purchase this because of the salt. So starting at the top, we keep in mind that one serving is the entire can. There's 1.5 grams of fat times 9 is 13.5 calories coming from fat. Divide that by the calories, which is 80, gives us 0.168, or about 16.8% fat, so around 17% fat. That's not too bad. It's just a little bit over 15%, so that would get a green light. For sodium, though, let's look at that, 720 milligrams of sodium. That's a yellow light or a red light, depending on your overall preference. And then for added sugars, we see there are no added sugars. So the soup is really high in sodium, and whether or not you choose to purchase it, again, is going to depend on your sodium preferences and your overall pattern for the day. And of course, if you're SOS free, you would not purchase this. All right. Now, if you were going to eat this 720 milligrams of salt in one serving, you would have to think, have I had any other processed food today that has sodium in it? And have I added any salt already to my food? So that's just the overall pattern that you'd have to consider. So that might go in your cart, or it might not. How about these oatmeal chocolate chip cookie bites? The ingredients are rolled oats, maple syrup, semi-sweet chocolate made with sugar. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Maple syrup, semi-sweet chocolate made with sugar, unsweetened chocolate, and cocoa butter. That's a red flag, which I talk about in the full-length version. Brown rice syrup, palm oil, and there's oil, coconut flakes, sorghum flour, and some starches, and cane sugar and sea salt. So right away, we see 4 types of sugar here. We've got maple syrup, sugar, brown rice syrup, and cane sugar. And then there's also the cocoa butter and palm oil, both of which are high in fat, and palm oil saturated fat. So this is a no already, but let's just keep going just for practice today. Let's look at the serving size as 1 cookie bite. So these are not like huge cookies. This is 1 cookie bite, has 5 grams of fat, times 9 is 45, divided by the calories is 0.375. Move the decimal to the right, 2 places and you get 37.5. So this product is 38% fat, which is high. And because of the cocoa butter and the palm oil, there's going to be saturated fat too, which if you calculate that out using the same formula, you find that 23% of the fat in the product is coming from saturated fat. Then moving down to sodium, we see 40 milligrams, which isn't horrible overall if you are choosing to use some to consume some added salt. And then for added sugars, we see 5 grams divided by 4 is 1.25 teaspoons per cookie. So basically, these cookies are oatmeal combined with fat and sugar. A lot of fat and sugar added to some oatmeal. This would stay on the shelf for sure. You can make oatmeal cookies a lot easier. How about McDougall's black bean soup? Okay, these are the soups where you just add hot water. The ingredients are black beans, tomato, organic sugar, lime juice powder, red bell pepper, natural flavor, sea salt, onion, yeast, garlic, spices, chili, pepper, and cilantro. No big red flags there, except, of course, if you're SOS free, you would not choose to purchase this. And by the way, if you see natural flavors, it's a good idea to make sure the product is labeled vegan, which this product is. That makes sure that we're not getting an animal-based natural flavor there. And we talk about natural flavors in the full-length course. And I don't talk as fast in the full-length course either. I'm going fast today because I want to get as much information in. So the serving size here is one container. The entire container is 1 serving, and the total fat is 1.5 grams of fat times 9 is 13.5. Divide that by the calories, and we get 0.038. And move the decimal over, that's 3.8% fat. Only 4% of calories are coming from fat. That's really, really good. Then we look at the sodium, though. That's 590 milligrams. That's one of those cases where it's going to depend on your preferences and your overall intake for the day. And then the added sugars are only 1 gram. So 4 divided by 1 would be 1/4 teaspoon. So there's 1/4 teaspoon of sugar in this product. So this might go in the cart depending on your choices regarding salt and sugar and what you've already consumed or plan to consume for the rest of the day. How about Uncle Sam's cereal? The ingredients are whole grain wheat, flaxseed, barley malt, and salt. Now, again, we're not covering refined flours here today, but this would be a whole grain product, and I talk about how to know that in the full length course. So the serving size here is 3/4 of a cup. And I did that on there. Yeah, 3/4 of a cup. Fat grams are 6, so 6 times 9 is 54, and divide that by the calories of 20. The result is 0.25, so 24.5% of this product is fat. But the source of the fat in this case is flaxseed. We know there's no oil in here. The flaxseed is the only source here. So that would be okay in my book as an acceptable cereal choice if I was traveling or, anytime. Sodium is 140 milligrams, which is pretty low, but again, depending on your sodium preferences, and the added sugars are 0. So this could go in the cart, again, unless you're SOS free and depending on your other intake for the day. Now, I'll probably just finish up with this one. This is mint chip dairy-free ice cream. Oh, man, I had to look at this for a long time in the store because I'm attracted to anything mint chip. And you'll notice that claim circled at the top there says no sugar added. Okay, so there's probably a sweetener in here, right? So what did they add instead of sugar? We're going to find out. So let's look at the ingredient list. Organic coconut milk, oatmeal, which is water and oat flour. It's not even really, it's organic water and oat flour, really. Organic coconut water, organic coconut oil. Okay, there's the big red flag. Organic erythritol. Anything ending in ITOL is a sugar alcohol, which is found naturally in some fruits, but the processed form is really debated as far as health concerns go. And Dr. Greger says to stay away from it. So that's a thing that would be a concern. And then we have chicory root extract, organic sunflower oil. So there's another oil, more erythritol again, cocoa, pea protein, a chocolate liquor, natural flavor, and then Reb, which is a stevia leaf extract, guar gum, which happens to be a thickener extracted from guar beans, monk fruit extract, locust bean gum. So they are using erythritol here for instead of sugar. But do you see any other red flags here? Big glaring red flags. By the way, they're using erythritol and stevia as sweeteners, but more of the erythritol. That's listed twice before the stevia is even mentioned. And of course, the other glaring flags are the coconut products, which, as we mentioned, is high in saturated fat. So the coconut oil would be a deal breaker right there. The coconut milk, you might still think that's acceptable, but check the saturated fat. So the serving size here is 2/3 of a cup. And I'm sorry that cut off in my photo. I was at the store taking all these pictures with my camera to avoid any copyright issues. I wanted to get all my own photographs for these things. So I'm sorry that got cut off, but 2/3 of a cup is the serving size. And we see that the total fat is 18 grams of fat times 9 calories is 163 calories coming from fat, divided by the total calories of 200 is 0.81. So move the decimal to the right two places. This product is 81% fat. So that's a lot of fat. And when we compute the saturated fat shown there in the blue highlight, because of those coconut products, 59% of that 81% is coming from saturated fat. So the majority of fat in this product is saturated fat. This is not a healthy product for sure by any means. Let's go. The sodium is 10 milligrams, which is not bad. But again, then you'll see no added sugars, but you will see their list highlighted in yellow sugar alcohols, that erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol. There's 8 grams of that. So 8 divided by 4 for our sugar computation is 2. So 2 teaspoons of a questionable sweetener are in this product, along with the high fat, the high saturated fat. So this definitely stays on the shelf. We can make our own mint ice cream very easily at home. In fact, there's a recipe right on my website called Choco Mint Ice Cream, and you can make that in a heartbeat. So I think I'm going to stop here because we're getting at the 10:02 mark, but I talk about the organic crackers here compared to Mary's crackers, and that's all in the full length version. But the bottom line is that label reading is crucial in order to make good decisions. I mean, we need to know what we're ingesting, right? Especially if the majority of, well, this wouldn't apply to us, but the majority of products in the shelves are these ultra processed foods. And it's important to know what you're ingesting because your health is worth the effort. This might seem like a lot of effort at first, all of this stuff, but it'll get to the point where you can just glance at a product and know if you're going to buy it. You just got to do the work up front to learn some of these basic rules. So to recap what we've learned here, ignore the misleading crafty claims on the box. Start with the ingredient list always first, and you'll often have to go no further than that. If the ingredients are acceptable, take a note of the serving size and then calculate the percentage of fat. We want to stick around 15%, possibly a little more if the source of fat is coming from nuts or seeds, and again, keeping your overall intake for the day in mind. Examine the sodium, calculate the added sugars, and again, based on your preferences and your intake for the day. And of course, if you were SOS free, you would not be buying any of those products at all. But as Amy said at the start, most importantly, we want to focus on low fat, whole plant foods. And I want to stress the word low fat. I think sometimes we often forget about that. The nuts, the seeds, the nut butters, and the avocados should be consumed as condiments, unless you're avoiding them as part of Dr. Esselstyn's program. Keep in mind, peanut butter is 76% fat. Tahini, which is used in a lot of dressings, is 81% fat. So all of those things to be considered. Maybe as a practice, go in your kitchen and do this on a few things that are in your kitchen, and you might be surprised. Let's
Yeah.
eat as close to nature as possible, and focus on the veggies, fruits, whole grains, legumes, starches, beans, potatoes, rice. And when you do purchase packaged items, look for minimally processed foods with a short, recognizable ingredient list, and then limit the number of packaged foods that you consume. And then one more thing, just today, the full version of the class does go over the whole grain issue, artificial sweeteners, how to spot hidden animal products, food dyes and how risky they are, additives and preservatives and chemicals to totally avoid, aluminum, protein isolates, and other concerns. So if you're not on my mailing list, go to cydnotter.com and get on there. So when the course is released, the full version, I can let you know when it comes out. And also at the website, you'll find some free things there, 3 food mistakes that most people are making. There's some dessert smoothies there, a free 21-day meal plan, and then my book is there too, signed copies of the book. Okay, I'm going to sign off, Amy. I'm sorry, I'm talking so fast.
Oh, we love when you're here, and don't hurry through. We love hearing all that you have to say. Everybody click like for that presentation. I mean, you all should be clicking like, because I think that everybody learned something or was reminded of something. And I also was thinking when you were talking about the foods that we have, maybe before we even go to the grocery store, maybe we should just shop in our kitchen and use what you taught us today and look at the labels of the things that we already have and decide, maybe this shouldn't be here, because it could quite possibly be. It can be so confusing. And thank you so much, Cyd, for giving us so much to think about. And of course, a lot of that math and computing, which you helped us learn. But, if you just eat the whole food the way, either from a plant, you're pulling off out of the ground or pulling off a tree, if you eat it that way, then you don't have to worry about these labels.
Exactly. I think the refined flour versus whole grain is a common mistake that people make. If they see a loaf of bread that says wheat bread, it's not a whole grain product, right? You need to know what to look for.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they'll add dark flavoring to a bread to make it look brown, so you think it's healthier.
Yeah,
it's very
amazing.
deceptive. Yeah, I'm going to move my camera back to get ready for the cooking demo.
Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to talk to our green warriors, and I'm just going to ask you to go ahead and type in the comments if you have any questions about that presentation. We already are having some questions that did come in, and I'll be asking Cyd about them very soon. And please let us know if you come in a little bit later where you're watching from. I would love to see where you are. We have a lot of people that are coming from the United States. Maybe somebody's from outside the United States. That would be interesting to see. And I'm so glad that you're all here. And please do click like, because Cyd is just doing so much today for us. She's going from her educational hat. Now she's going into her cooking demo hat. So she's doing so much. I'm going to put you in full mode here so you can just make sure that you like the way your camera looks there, Cyd. Are you happy with where it's set up? Okay, just making sure that you're okay with that. So tell us, Cyd, you're going into cooking demo mode, and what are you making for us today?
This is the dinosaur kale slaw with orange Dijon dressing. And dinosaur kale is flat leaf kale. Maybe you have never used it before. It's also known as Italian kale, Tuscan kale, dinosaur kale, flat black kale, palm tree kale, black Tuscan palm kale. I mean, there's a lot of names for this as opposed to the curly kale. And so I got most of it in my bowl here. We're going to cut this up into small pieces, but I wanted to show you how I strip the hard stem out of this. Is I just tear the bottom to get the leaves started, and then you just do a quick thing like this to get all the stem out. So just strip that real quick, and then I'm going to roll this up like a cigar and chop it in that mode. Maybe you guys all have your own tips for how you chop things small, especially greens. What do you do, Amy? Do you do that when you're chopping greens?
Well, I was gifted a Holland bowl.
Oh, okay.
And that is it's a big wooden bowl, and it comes with a special chopper. So I love to chop my greens up very finely so that I can get more inside of my bowl. And so that's what I do. But I usually kind of, like what you said, I strip it. And then that piece that I get off the stem that I get from the kale, either it's going to go in my green smoothie. But if my puppy Zeus is around, he expects to get at least one. So he can take it off onto my carpet, because dogs don't like anything unless it's on the carpet, and chew on it. Tell me,
That's funny.
Do any of you feed your dogs any of your plant scraps as you're cooking? I'd like to know. Tell me in the comments. Go ahead, Cyd. Tell us what you do next.
Okay, so this recipe, did I mention this is on my website? Just go to cydnotter.com, type the word dinosaur in the search bar, and it'll come right up for you. The next ingredient is a bag of shredded cabbage or a lettuce slaw mix. The world is your oyster on this. You can pick whatever you want. I've got a tricolor coleslaw here, and it calls for a 12-ounce bag. This is a 16-ounce bag, so I'm not going to put the whole thing in. Again, this is very versatile. You could add just about anything you'd like to this salad. Next, it calls for a half cup of shredded or chopped carrots, 1 red bell pepper, chopped up. It calls for a red onion, a small red onion, thinly sliced. I happen to have chopped rather than sliced, but I think the sliced is I had chopped up already. And then 4 to 5 mandarin oranges, which have been peeled and sectioned, and all the pith has been pulled off of those. So 4 to 5 of those. And then I'm going to toss this briefly. And it also calls for a 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds, which you could use as garnish on the top or add it right into the salad. I think I will add it right into the salad today. So a 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds, raw, organic, I have here. And that's it. Now I'm going to make the dressing because that's the key to any salad, right? Is the dressing that we're going to use. Can you see this, Amy? It's a very colorful salad.
Oh,
It's
it's
really a slaw. It's
beautiful.
called slaw because we've put a slaw mix in there.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful.
This is really a pretty thing to bring to potlucks or other things too. So for the orange Dijon dressing, let's get that going here. We have got a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. And I've got to get that out of there. My spatula, believe it or not, broke. So I've got to use this long Vitamix spatula
You're
to get my
working hard
mustard.
in that kitchen, Cyd.
So there's the mustard, 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard, a 1/4 cup of pure orange juice. You could do your own or, squeeze your own or use 100% pure orange juice. 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar, 1/4 cup of maple syrup or date syrup. And I am using date syrup here today. I'm sorry, 4 tablespoons, not a 1/4. Did I say a 1/4 cup? It's 4 tablespoons of maple syrup or date syrup. And I'm using date. And then for the seasoning, we've got a 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning and an 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper. That's it. Whisk that up. And you know what? I'm not going to put this on here because I'm going to save this for Friday. We're going to have a little thing Friday, and I'd like to serve this Friday. So I'm not going to pour the dressing. If you don't mind, if you'll forgive me, I'm not putting the dressing on here right now because it's going to make the salad way mushy by the time Friday comes.
I'm glad you're saying that because this is planning ahead and cooking ahead of time is so nice. It's a good strategy for staying on plan, and you're showing that you incorporate that strategy as well, where sometimes you might prep the food and just keep the dressing on the side until it's time to go. Great strategy. So those of us who are going to be making that soon might think about that we can prep it ahead of time. I love it.
Right. And always be prepared, right, Amy? That's part of the success with whole food plant-based eating is to be prepared. Always have something healthy in the fridge.
Absolutely. And you showed how I love how you incorporated that bag of mixed cabbage and such because it was basically a dump and go kind of recipe, which we love those.
Yeah, in fact, I might eat the rest of this right now, with a little dressing too, because that'll be my lunch today, another salad. But yeah, so this is really easy to make. And again, it's so versatile. You could add things in here, whatever you want to add, or if you don't want to have oranges in there, you don't have to. But I would do. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask you if you could hold the bowl up to the camera so we could see how beautiful the colors are and everything.
Absolutely.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Love it. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me on today. I hope, were there any questions for
Oh,
me, by
yeah,
the
we have
way?
questions and comments. Jennifer said, "Beautiful and so colorful salad. I'm excited to give it a try." See, you're already motivating people. And Jennifer Diamond's been on the show before. She's coming back, so stay tuned for that. I'm so excited that she's here. And let's see what else we have. Oh, so some people were making comments during your presentation, and Mona said that I now always look at the fat first, then saturated fat, then added sugars if I'm getting anything other than real food. I love how you said real food, Mona.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's great because sometimes you just look for the first thing and that might just, make that decision for you right there. You don't have to go move on to the rest of them. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
And
this class is taking much longer to develop than I originally thought because I used to have a label reading class and I thought I'll just brush that off and update it. It has taken weeks and weeks for me to dive more deeply into some of the later things that have come out since I originally made the class. So the
yes.
full length version, I'm hoping another couple months I'll have that totally ready to go. But I encourage everyone to get on my mailing list because I have a breast cancer class coming up in October, a 4-week series along with Jody Lynn, another Food for Life instructor. We're teaming up to do a 4-week class on breast cancer. And I'm teaming up with another coach to do a 4-week coaching session in mid October on how to survive the holidays, the plant based holidays. So, yeah, a lot of things coming up on this end. It's going to be a busy fall. And then in November, I'm just going to crash. That's my plan.
Well, yeah, take a little hiatus every now and then. Okay, so let's see. Oh, well, Cheryl said this is very important information. Yes, I agree. Please share it with your friends because it is very important. And Boomer Beyond Wellness said this is a great presentation. And she's going to share it. So that's great. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So Melanie said, who would not eat the whole can of soup if you were going to eat that when you were talking about that can of soup? Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and Not So Pretty Life said, did you grow your own kale, Sid?
No, I do not have a green outdoor thumb. I have a
Oh,
green indoor thumb, but outdoors, no. It's $1.99 for an organic bunch at the store, and I'm willing to pay that rather than try to grow it.
yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're trying to grow it without any chemicals and things,
Yeah.
it can be a challenge. I have tried my hand at a lot of things, but sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah, plus our yard is shady in the back, so it's only sunny in the front. So if I tried to garden one time out in the front yard, it did not work. We have a
Uh,
lot of animals around, and so I decided to look for sales instead.
yeah, yeah, sometimes that's what and then you could always sprout indoors, right? So
I do
sometimes if
sprout.
you
Yeah, I
try
do sprout.
yeah,
And
so you
plus, I have
grow things.
family members that garden, so I do get their
Oh,
produce.
nice.
Yeah.
That's the
So,
best way to garden.
yeah.
And Mona said, "What are your thoughts on non-dairy yogurts made from cashews or almonds? Would the fat be considered as bad?"
Well, we'd have to look at the label and see how much fat it is and how much sugar. The sugar would be the concerning part there, as well as the fat. But without seeing the label, I don't know. There's different brands of cashew yogurt.
Yeah,
If it's
that's
an unsweetened one and you're just going to add your own fruit, you can buy unsweetened yogurt and then add your own fruit to it. But I really have not ever calculated the fat on cashew yogurt, so I can't answer that with any knowledge.
yeah. So you maybe either join your class and she could probably ask the question there, and then maybe if she had the label, then she could share it with you maybe at the class. But you could probably use some of the calculations that you showed us to try to calculate the fat if you wanted to maybe.
Or ask your phone. Remember that tip to just ask your phone.
Yeah.
Save
It,
a lot
it,
of time.
yeah. It doesn't take long, right? You can just ask your phone, and you should just be able to say, "Hey, phone, is this okay to eat?" And not have
Yeah.
to worry about all that. but it is so deceiving, you're right, and we
Right.
really can't be looking at the the label in the front, we have to definitely look at those ingredients. Wow, I'm
Yeah,
just
and the ultra processed foods, I really did a deep dive into that and wrote a full like half-page article, which our paper did print, our newspaper did print it. And in the full length course, I'll be talking more about UPFs. You know, I was trying to condense things
yeah,
today for our short visit together. But my nature is to want you to know everything. And so that doesn't usually work when there's, I want to share everything. That's just my personality. I want you to know about this.
yes.
So the
You're
full length course is where you will learn all of it.
yeah, that's a very very good thing to do.
Yeah.
I would recommend that people look into that. Well, wanted to tell everybody that I'm thrilled to announce that we're having a special book giveaway featuring Cyd Notter's book, The Plan A Diet, combining whole food plant-based nutrition with the timeless wisdom of scripture. And if you want to tell us a little bit about the book, if you want to enter for this giveaway, you can go to my website, begreenwithamy.com. I'll also put a link to the giveaway in the description on YouTube. And I'll also be having it on my Be Green with Amy Facebook page. So you can look in those areas for the ways to enter for the book giveaway. But tell us a little bit about your book.
Oh, me? You want me to say
Yeah,
something
of
about the
course.
book?
Yeah. It's a beautiful book, and you can see I even have a bookmark in it because I like to refer to it. So tell us about it.
Well, it's a combination. It's got all the reasons why we should eat plant-based, all the scientific, data research behind why eating this way is the plan A way we should eat, as well as if you happen to be a person of faith, I've included some scriptural references in there and principles which would support you more in your journey.
Yes, yes. It is a beautiful book, and I think that for people that are, want to talk to people who are on the religious side, sometimes people refer to the Bible, and you have a lot of great scripture in there that you could share with someone if they were interested in seeing, because there is a lot of mention of that and a lot of different references, and that can be very helpful for people.
Yeah,
Well,
it's the
yeah.
principles of the scripture, like don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit in without even thinking about it. You know, that's a principle in scripture that applies to how we eat.
Mm,
Anything you can't say no to is soon going to become your master, right? Isn't that what happens when we start heading into food addictions and things? So there's just a lot of principles there which tie in nicely together. We're going to reap what we sow. In other words, we're going to have consequences to the choices we make. Isn't that where is
yeah,
that more evident than with the way we eat? So it's
yeah,
things like that. The book covers things like that.
yeah. So it's very applicable, and it's applicable to other things in life too, but definitely applicable to those who are adopting this lifestyle. Well,
Mhm.
Green Warrior, please click like to show your appreciation for what Cyd shared with us today. And you told us a little bit about it, but just tell us about what you do, how we find you on social media.
Yeah, cydnotter.com is the website. YouTube, on my YouTube channel is Cyd Notter, just basically Cyd Notter anywhere. Even my email is cydnotter@cydnotter.com if you'd like to send a question. I have courses on my website. There's a free course there called Three Food Mistakes That Lead to Painful Joints, Extra Weight, and Health Problems the Doctors Aren't Solving. And there's also a course there if you do happen to be in the faith. It's called Food, Faith, and Fulfilling Your Purpose with 24 different experts, Christian experts, whom you might recognize many of them. Tim and Heather Kaufman, for example, Shane Martin from Shane and Simple. So I've got a lot of interviews on that course. Tanya, that happens to be here today, if she's still here, my friend Tanya, she gave a great presentation. So that's a free thing that's also on my website as well.
Lovely. You always offer so many things to help us out, and I really appreciate it. And I really want to thank you, Cyd, for providing us with both insightful information and actionable strategies to navigate these really confusing food labels.
I know. I
Yeah.
know. Just reading the ingredient list is going to be the biggest thing because you'll often put it right back. Everything's got oil in it for the most part. And if you're
Mhm.
not consuming oil, you'll find the products, as I mentioned, you will find oil free products, but you're going to have to search.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So, Cyd, what's your final take home message for our green warriors?
Label reading is worth it. I know it seems like a big hassle, and I mentioned this earlier, but you need to know what you're ingesting, right? If you're truly concerned about your health, you need to know what you're ingesting, even in packaged foods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Well, Green Warrior, tell us what you're going to remember. What is one of your takeaways from today that you didn't know that you should know? And please type that in the chat. I would like to see that. And I also wanted to thank Jess Task Voice. She did the promos, she did the voiceover, she does the thumbnails. She does so much to get the word out about our broadcast so that you can all join us today. And Jess Task Voice, tell us who's coming up next.
Do you struggle with constant cravings? Join us as Ellen shares her journey to vibrant health with a whole food plant-based lifestyle. And stay tuned for her live recipe demo. It's delicious and transformative. Join us on Wednesday, August 21st, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on Be Green with Amy Live.
I like that music, Jess Task Voice. Well, thank you. Thank you, Green Warrior, for joining us today. Your engagement and support make these discussions meaningful and impactful. I really hope that you're feeling inspired to take a closer look at your food choices and your food labels and make some positive changes for your health and well-being. And remember, every bite we take, especially out of that processed food packages, is an opportunity to nourish our bodies and become the healthiest versions of ourselves. And please stay tuned for more empowering content. Please subscribe to my channel. Check out Cyd's social media as well, and share our message with others who can benefit, because together as Green Warriors, we can make a meaningful difference in the world. And as a special thank you to all of you Green Warriors for being so loyal and watching, I am offering you 5 free recipes. If you just go to my website, begreenwithamy.com/join, I will send you 5 free whole food plant-based, SOS-free, no sugar, oil, or salt added recipes that you can enjoy, some of my favorites. So I really wanted to thank all of you again, and thanks, Cyd. And I want all of us to join in and give each other some love. Go ahead and take your right hand and grab your left shoulder, and take your left hand and grab your right shoulder. Now squeeze, because that's a hug from me to you, from me to you, Cyd, because you're always doing so many wonderful things from our channel. And if you can type in the comments my tagline, and Cyd's going to say it with me. Are you ready, Cyd? Okay.
Yes.
Until I see all of you again, remember, be strong, be well, and be green. Thank you, Cyd.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Green Warriors. Bye-bye, everyone.
Now you can get 5 free whole food plant-based SOS-free recipes from Be Green with Amy. Just click on the link in the show notes and Amy will send you 5 free recipes, motivational quotes, and more so you can be strong, be well, and be green.